Whatever happened to Gary Cooper? The strong, silent type. That was an American. He wasn't in touch with his feelings. He just did what he had to do.
Tony's aspirational masculine fantasy as laid out in the pilot, the strong, silent type, someone who does what needs to be done without complaining and without insecurity or weakness, is a very relatable male fantasy to most, I think. Quiet, in control, strong, the ideal male. Tony Soprano as a character, in contrast to this, is masculinity in crisis. The conceit of the show, of his character, the mob boss in therapy, is a direct effrontery to this masculine ideal he holds so dear. To be in therapy is to be the opposite of silent, and in the eyes of many, the opposite of strong. He is not someone who can simply do what needs to be done. Sometimes he passes out, sometimes he struggles, a lot of the time he complains. He is often weak and insecure. It is in this internal contradiction and how it manifests that the show's heart lies. The point is that there is no strong silent type. This masculine fantasy is nothing more than a fantasy. This show is an exercise in breaking down aspirations and fantasies with harsh reality. Its cutting and honest portrayal of life, human frailty, and the human condition takes a sledgehammer to the idea that anyone is allowed to live up to aspirational images and romantic fantasies. Tony nostalgically thinks of his father, or the old-timers, as examples of this archetype. But that is contradicted by all the characters of that generation we meet, and in all the things we learn about his father. Others might even perceive Tony himself outwardly as the embodiment of this archetype, despite us, the audience, knowing otherwise. Turns out Gary Cooper, that was a movie after all. It was shocking to me then to realize in my most recent rewatch of the series that there is one character that The Sopranos as a show does position to embody a lot of the qualities admired in Gary Cooper and in the strong silent type by Tony. It's done ironically, but nonetheless, it was fascinating to me that it was done at all, even in the limited way it is. This is all laid out fittingly in the season 4 episode titled The Strong Silent Type. Now that is interesting. This episode is Tony at his weakest, or at least Tony at his least in control. He can't control his emotions after the death of his beloved Pyomai. He can't control Christopher, his recently orchestrated heir apparent from his drug problem. He can't even control his wife from her burgeoning affair with his driver. Everything is in disarray. It is perhaps the furthest he's been away from the strong silent type archetype, crying and weak over a fucking horse. There's a scene in the middle of the episode where Tony comes to visit his Uncle Junior at his house, but instead finds Svetlana, the boss of his uncle's maid, who's filling in for her, and who also happens to be his longtime ex-girlfriend on the side's cousin. She's also Russian, and is missing a leg if you must know everything. Svetlana, to Tony's surprise, is building herself a website from scratch for her business. Tony comments that she's got every excuse in the world to be down and out, and to be at the bottom of a bottle. She's handicapped, she's an immigrant, she doesn't speak the best English, yet she's conquering the world, and seems content, if not happy, doing it. She's a strong woman. To all her problems, she says, there are worse things. She does what she has to do, without complaint. There are also better things. Things that Tony has. Advantages that Tony has. Yet he is depressed in spite of this, and feels as if he has nothing. With the limited self-awareness Tony allows himself to internalize, he admires these strengths in Svetlana. Later in the episode, after Christopher's wildly successful intervention, Tony returns. This time without the pretense of wanting to visit his uncle. He sits with Svetlana and drinks. Tony vents about spending the night in the hospital with Christopher, tries to make small talk, and then makes obvious his reason for visiting, and gets flirtatious. He comments that Svetlana has always got a smile, like she's got her own personal joke. She's not depressed and full of self-pity. He comments that she doesn't talk much, envying her ability to be silent, and lack of a need to vent. He says that he wishes he knew her secret. Lose a leg and start making websites. He wishes he knew the secret to her strength. That's when Svetlana says,
"That's the whole purpose for people like me, to inspire people like you."
This line represents two things. things. Obviously, it's a slight commentary on an able-bodied society using handicapped people as a source of motivation, and in the end, self-pity in a way that's probably pretty belittling and offensive to handicapped people. Oh look, even the girl with no leg can be a go-getter, how admirable. This lesser-than person, incredible. A sentiment that is likely quickly followed by, what's your excuse? Either from external voices or internal ones. Svetlana, when Tony brings up her having every excuse earlier in the episode, doesn't even realize what he's talking about at first. She says she doesn't think about her leg immediately, when it's likely all other people think about regarding her. She is realizing here how other people view her. She isn't meant to be a person. Her purpose is to be a tool for inspiration and oftentimes self-pity for those who are able-bodied, defined by her handicap, even if evidently she is much more. The line cuts through the supposed praise at the heart of it, when it's usually meant selfishly. She says the line sharply and with venom. There's also a second, more titular meaning here. Gary Cooper, the strong silent type, the purpose of a character like him, an archetype like him, is to inspire people. Tony is one of those that were inspired. But also with this inspiration, it is likely oftentimes a source of self-pity and negative internal and external comparison. Svetlana in this episode embodies the strong silent type.
That's the whole purpose for people like me, to inspire people like you.
It's said sharply and with venom. The irony here, obviously, is that this old American masculine ideal is not embodied by a man or even an American, but rather a handicapped Russian immigrant woman, and is probably a result of those factors. There is also a commentary in what happens next, where Tony and Svetlana sleep together. Tony is in a way so in love with the idea of the strong silent type, that he has sex with it. Following the sex, his ideal also rejects him, when he logistically tries to figure out how they can continue their relationship. Svetlana even revels in the masculine qualities Tony does inherently present, being big and strong, full of life and mischief, but says it's not enough. She doesn't want to continue their relationship because she has her own problems, and doesn't want to always have to prop him up. This masculine ideal rejects him for the weakness that prevents him from embodying it. His insecurity, his worries, his need for validation. Svetlana outlines this further in their conversation, where she unknowingly makes fun of Tony by generalizing the American mindset, about how they have too much time to think about themselves, and how they expect to be happy, so they spend time bitching to their psychiatrists. All things Tony represents. All things Tony actually embodies. It prevents them from doing what they have to do, being so concerned with selfish pursuits of happiness. You have everything and still you complain, she says. It's what Gary Cooper would say if Tony was in front of him. Tony outlines these worries in the first monologue he has about Gary Cooper in the pilot, where he sort of sees through his own aspirational fantasy. He admits that if Gary Cooper had to sit down, it'd be revealed that he had weaknesses and needed to get more in touch with his feelings, and it would lead to dysfunction. Tony has known this whole time that this fantasy is not one that can be achieved, yet he clutches to it. He still aspires to it. And that's kind of the point the show is making about masculinity. In the end, it's impossible for men to really escape. For Tony, for us. Despite the inherent contradiction, despite the futility, I guess we all admire Gary Cooper, the strong silent type. Because maybe like Tony deep down, we love the self-pity that is created by negative comparisons to impossible fantasies. Maybe we aren't so different from women in the end. He was gay, Gary Cooper? Oh! We've still got our pay pigs to thank. That'd be Jockey Bacon, Cruel Beauty, Mr. Gems, and Piggy Elite RE.